So welcome, Daria.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for having me. I'm so excited to be on here with you today.
I am really excited, and we just had a mini conversation before this started. And I want to know, can you share a little bit about your story from birth? Because that's such an interesting, for me, I was like, whoa, it started from the beginning, really from the beginning for you.
And yes, it definitely did. I had a very tough journey growing up. So when I was born, I died. My mom's umbilical cord got wrapped around my neck 30 times, and I lost a lot of oxygen to my brain. And my face was black, and they had to revive me. And ever since a small little girl, I had really explosive anxiety, panic attacks. It was just a very difficult journey. And which also I grew up with having learning disabilities and not having many places that understood me, like school or doctors really could understand, who I was and how to help me, and which caused a lot of sadness and depression.
Yeah. And I know that you like as you went through this, like you started to learn things about yourself, and you just said things like your doctors, things people were like not understanding or able to commit to working with somebody that had this learning disability and these gifts that you were trying to let out. And I know these gifts just because we had a conversation about it. Can you tell me a little bit about letting those gifts out and like how in the past it was reacted to?
Yes. When I was a little, like I was about 6 years old, and I tell this story because it was so powerful. It was my first real connection of understanding of, I'm psychic. I might be a medium. When I was about 6 years old, I just knew that my parents weren't telling me something, and it wasn't like really bad. It's just they didn't really say anything to me. So I decided one day to go to a photo album off a shelf and go to my parents and to ask them this question: Who is this person? And they told me that's your dad's twin sister. She died in 1978. She was 28 when she died from a drunk driver. And I was born in 86. And from that point on, I could feel her around me. I knew she was talking to me. I could dream about her. When I was a little girl, I illustrated this little book and I dedicated it to her. And I did tell doctors about it. I did tell one of my doctors, and they just think I was nuts. This girl thinks she talks to her dead aunt, her guardian angel. And I also said that I talked to God and I had a connection to God, and they wrote that down as if I was nuts. And I just really had a gift that these medical facilities had no idea what it is, and they just want to over medicate you and not understand your gift. And it caused a lot of more depression and anxiety, having all these labels smacked onto me, and just not the acceptance of I'm gifted. So yeah, I just had to deal with that growing up. A lot of those medical doctors really not knowing um, how to help me, and made a lot of judgments, and caused me to have a lot of limiting beliefs about myself.
I think that it's so crazy that those beliefs are pushed on us at a young age. And I know that there's a lot more of the story, but if we could fast forward a little bit until like 2016, because 2016 you had these a major awakening. Can you kind of share with us a little bit about like that journey and how that looked?
Yes, and I didn't get a chance to tell you in our previous discussion before, but beforehand, before my spiritual awakening in 2016, I went through 5.5 years of domestic violence, and I have a lifetime restraining order against somebody, and that really pushed me to do that inner healing. And I don't know, something about that relationship jolted me. So a year later in 2016, I started picking up the pieces, and things of spirituality started popping out to me, messages that I was feeling, and the word Reiki kept coming to me. I know I told you before, I everywhere I go, people would be talking about Reiki, and I had a friend who uh, did Reiki, and she started doing Reiki on me. And I was like, wow, I really like that. And my biggest spiritual awakening experience, really happened when I was at a doctor's office. And it pushed me to understand, why am I so sensitive? Why is there so many problems with me? And so this doctor's appointment, I don't know, it was the weirdest thing. I didn't even get the chance to tell you this. I was at a gynecologist's office, and I just had this spiritual awakening experience there. And then I went home and started looking up the word sensitive, which led me to what empath was and all this stuff about, spiritual people. And I was like, wow, that really makes so much sense. And where these doctors didn't know how to give me these answers, and this sums up who I am as a person. And I was, that's when I really had that spiritual awakening experience. And I went back a year later to see that doctor, and I told her about it. And for some weird reason, I was able to kind of share that with her. And she said, wow, I'm so glad you told me that, because I'm an empath and I'm a spiritual healer, and I'm leaving my office to start a holistic service. And I thought that was really powerful, something she kind of awoke me in that time period. And ever since then, I've just been on this path of healing and understanding spirituality. And it's something that resonated with my soul when I was a tiny little girl.
That is so, and you never think of like going to the gynecologist as that moment of awakening, but it also is a big powerhouse area in our bodies.
Yes, definitely. The sacral chakra energy of that area definitely awoken me up to, I was in such pain by that. And she was telling me I had some sort of little bit of a medical issue. And I was like, of course. I was born, with my umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and I was born with, a crooked smile, like I had an overbite, and my eyes were crooked, and I have learning disabilities, and no one knows how to teach me. And of course I would have this. And and I started to cry, and I was like, why am I so sensitive? Everyone tells me I'm so sensitive. What does this mean? And it's so powerful that just in like a gynecologist's office, that it really awoke in me to remember things of my past. And I think also was that domestic violent relationship as well that really shook me up to do that inner healing, and that I needed to do that inner healing. Um, and was one of the most powerful moments of my life.
So as you were going through this healing, and kind of share with us a little bit of what that journey looked like, because I know it's not something that's just like boom, we're done. Like it's a
No.
process. Can you share a little bit about like how that journey looked in your life?
Yes. So yes, growing up, it was very rough. I know had suffered with really bad anxiety. I went through a lot of sadness and really difficult moments of, maybe needing to go to a hospital but I never ended up in a hospital. But, those moments of extreme sadness. So during that time of my spiritual awakening experience, I steered away for a while from Western medicine, Western doctors, because I also went through a lot of them giving me a lot of limiting beliefs about myself and about money, and that weren't really true about myself. So I had a very negative perception about therapists from that point on, because every therapist or psychiatrist or psychologist was very negative in my life. So I decided to use Reiki. So I started to understand the powers of Reiki. And I took Reiki classes. And by the end of 2016, I was a Reiki teacher master. And I started seeing other holistic practitioners that used, shamanic healing. I used different healing techniques like past life readings, all this type of stuff. And I got very heavily into that. But I was in my last relationship with my last boyfriend, who did not understand this at all. And he broke my heart because he never could understand any of it. And I was just being my true self, finally being me and not trying to be somebody else. And he could not understand. So I went through a lot of depression and, really a lot of sadness. And I really shut down and stopped meditating and stopped doing my spiritual practices. And, and my partner that I met now, who I'm with now, kind of um, led me to where I need to be as well, because he was very open to it. And so I started meditating more on a more frequent basis. And when we moved into this apartment that we're in now, I started to create a meditation practice. So meditating every single day was a huge thing to reduce anxiety and depression. So I started using meditation, but I was still having really bad anxiety, and I was still, wanting to do more. And I did see tons of different people, from tapping specialists, but it didn't really get to the core of my issues. So this past year during COVID was kind of my another spiritual awakening experience, I should say, too, because a lot of truth came out during this year of my limiting beliefs, my root causes of my pain. And it really stemmed from feeling not worthy of my parents' love, that I was too hard to love because of being who I am with anxiety, that I didn't deserve love, or I was too hard to love. So I decided to. One day, me and my partner were in a really big huge fight, and I was scrolling through Google, and I googled holistic physicians, and I came to this place called the Neurovation Center, and I decided to see an EMDR trauma specialist to help me get to my root causes of my pain. And I started with that last year, and that's changed my life so much, including still using Reiki and meditation. And so I started to do that, and I also incorporated sound healing, which I love. And I love to play sound healing and meditations, but I love to use it on myself. I love the frequency of the bowls. I loved how the bowls made me feel. So I incorporated sound healing as well. So I started using all these practices, and I was still kind of going through a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic attacks still. And, me and my partner were going through our stuff as well. And so I stepped it up a notch. And in December of this past year, I decided to do a new healing modality that I'm not trained in. It's called neurofeedback, and I have this cap that I put on my head, and it changes the brain functioning in your brain to let go of trauma and really work on changing the brain waves in your brain. So I've incorporated that with doing that with everything that I'm doing, and I feel like I'm on such a great path. But healing is not a destination. You're not just boom, you're here, you're done. It's a lifelong journey, and it's a journey that I love to inspire people to really get down more on, because you know, you know, when you don't heal yourself, you don't know what happiness really feels like. And you can spend your whole life doing it, healing, and people think, oh, well, that's kind of, oh, I should get to this point, I don't want to feel this way. But you know there's so many layers that we have to pull back, so many layers of conditioning from our society that we're pulling back, and each year gets more beautiful and beautiful and beautiful, and you really get to the lotus flower opening up its petals. And this is this year of understanding the beauty of my pain. It's beautiful in almost a sense, because I'm meant to overcome it, and not to let it defy who I am, but allow it to teach me what I need to be shown. And now I look at my life as something to be grateful for. And even though I had this pain, we all have, limiting beliefs. We all have our stories. This is my story, but it's not a story of sadness and being a victim. It's a story of victory, and that it can take you to a whole nother place, and really understanding your fear. We all have fear. We can't really get rid of fear. We can understand our fear and not let it cripple us and defy our lives. And we can allow it just to bring healing into our lives. And that's what I'm truly grateful for, is just healing from all the suffering that I went through. And I still have my bad days, but now I'm understanding of like how what I need to do, what I need to let go of. Okay, universe, what are you showing me? Thank you, universe. That's kind of my perspective now on my outlook on healing.
That's amazing. So there's a part of surrender.
Yes, surrender. Surrender is huge. In those moments, we think we're a victim, in those moments where we feel like so anxious, so overwhelmed. We feel like we're in tears. We don't feel like we've grown much as a person. And in those moments are meant to surrender them. You're meant to surrender those moments and just understand what the universe is trying to show you, and not let yourself be in the driver's seat. Allow the universe to be in the driver's seat and navigate you to where you need to be. And surrendering is huge and a part of healing.
And I love that, because I think so often we try to fix, or we try to do, or we try to figure out that next thing, when in reality that changes our vibration.
I totally agree. We always think that we're in control. It's up to us and fix it. And it's just I like to say don't micromanage the universe because the universe knows what's best for us. We don't really know what's best for us because sometimes our minds are too much in our ego of feeling better than or less than. But a lot of the time, people who feel better than really feel less than. They have to feel like they're better than somebody, and our egos keep us in that state of mind where we're not allowing the universe to be in the driver's seat. And I had a bad day yesterday too, and the day before, and I realized I'm on this mission and I'm going to keep doing as much as I can to really heal myself with everything that I'm doing and allow spiritual truth to take over and just heal my soul and heal my heart. And I'm not in any race to do it because, that would mean making the decisions and shots. It's the universe. But I know that I'm going to keep surrendering, and it's okay that I still have some of these things. We're perfectly imperfect, and it's okay. It's a journey. It's a journey.
That's like my favorite tagline. It's like, be perfectly imperfect and be okay with self. And I know that we were talking about before of like this surrendering also with money, with our money stories and our money blocks. And I know that a lot of the Feed Your Body with Love audience has a lot of these blocks. Like, how does that ego versus surrender fit into, like, because I know you have your own business and you serve others with these beautiful gifts. How do you keep that surrender when it's like, oh no, there's not this for tomorrow? Like, where do you tell ego to go when you have that surrender moment?
Well, and in that moment, sometimes I get in that ego because I do Reiki, I do life coaching, I do sound meditations, and sometimes I felt like my ego is going off. I have this deadline. I have to get my clientele up. So, my unemployment ends at this time. I have to meet it. But what happens is when I'm doing that, I block it because when you're coming from desperation, it never takes flight. When you're desperate, when you're feeling in peace and joy and pleasure, that's when the universe provides. And in those moments, I just have to surrender. And what I did was sometimes I get on my hands and knees to the universe and I surrender. And I'm like, I surrender to you. I have trust and faith that you're going to send me where I need to be sent, and allow um, time to allow people just to come to me, and not be so desperate for clients, to bring me that money. That just having faith will bring you that money. Just having that sense of trust that it will work, and you don't micromanage the universe. Let it come to you, and it will. But the moment you try to do it yourself, and oh, I got to come up with this answer and this answer, oh, how is this going to happen? That's when you block anything from coming to you. And those are the moments that I just, okay, Daria, just breathe. You got this. It'll happen. You were meant to do this. I'm meant to be a healer. I'm meant to help people with my modalities. And it'll happen. And not to try to force, because that energy of force, it's like, I love to say this metaphor. Last summer, I went kayaking with my guy, and we're kayaking in a kayak, and I'm trying to, like, there was the current, the certain weather was allowing the current to be extra strong, and I was trying to up the current, like try to row the boat up the current, and I couldn't because the pressure was so much. I had to go with the flow of life and kind of surrender and follow what the water was navigating me to go. And that's kind of true with life. If you're trying to force, it's kind of like you're pushing yourself up the stream that you're not meant to go that direction. And you kind of just have to be like, okay, I wasn't meant to go there. So I'm just gonna like take my hands off the rows and just let the water take me to where I need to be. And just using the power of nature to kind of be a message for me not to force myself.
Oh, I love that. And it is, it's this flow, this peace and flow, and that really it energetically does align and open up a lot of different avenues of things that come to you out of the blue when you actually do surrender. I know there's been moments in my life that I've been able to actually surrender, and it was like, oh, hey, thanks universe, you actually like provided. I didn't have to work that hard. And I love that analogy of like, you don't have to constantly be rowing the wrong
Yes.
direction.
Yes. And, sometimes when things don't work out, we get so sad and depressed. But we also have to understand the universe has something better for us in store. If you get fired from your job, which I have, I've been discriminated against, I've been pushed out of jobs because of having learning challenges. And it's maybe that's not where I was meant to be. Maybe the universe did me a favor. And sometimes we let those situations cause us suffering, but that's an understanding of our pain and not understanding, well, the universe is trying to take us over there. Or the guy that broke your heart, sometimes we want to dwell in the pain of losing that guy. And like my ex, there was another guy that was better meant for me because he got me, he understands me. And if I constantly depressed about guys who didn't resonate with me, it's like I don't understand the flow of life. It wasn't meant for me. There was a better path for me to go down that would bring me to where I need to go. And that's really understanding life. It's not meant for suffering, and we are not our pain. We are meant to be triumphant.
And I love that. And what I keep hearing is like this whole be yourself, like accept yourself. If people leave, that's because they're not aligned.
Amen. Thank you, girl. Like that's amazing because, you know, I just got very motivated today. I was talking to my mother and about my grandmother and just always, oh, what is this person going to think? What is that person going to think? I shouldn't do that because that person's going to think that. And it's like when you care so much about what other people think or not being your true authentic self, it doesn't allow people to know who you really are, and people can't love you for who you really are. And maybe they're not worthy to be in your life. If they're going to be the person that doesn't love you for exactly who you are, there are other people that will. And so just always be yourself. It's so important just to always be your true self. And I felt like for such a long period of time, I could never be my true self. I knew that I was a spiritual leader and spiritual person as a small little girl. And as I grew up in middle school, I felt like I had to be a fashionista. I went to school for fashion merchandising. I hit it, and I never could be my true self. And now I just want to I desire to inspire more people just to be authentic and weird, be their weird self, because not many people can really truly be authentic in this world, and it's a gift. Your authenticity is a gift.
100%. Preach.
Thanks. I have such passion for this and educating people and inspiring people because, you know, I've been on this journey, and it's sometimes not easy, and I feel like giving up, but in those moments I sit and reflect and like makes me want to inspire people more now. I want to get out more and inspire more people. And that you can, when you really work on your heart and loving you for exactly who you are, and knowing that you're amazing and worthy, that we all are worthy. No one is better than you, and you're not better than anyone else. We're all on this journey together, and we all intertwined together, and we're all part of each other. It brings the ultimate healing. And I would love to inspire more women or men or whoever is watching this to really stop comparing yourself to somebody else, and just always seek to be a better version of yourself, always.
Ooh, that's like a mic drop. Okay, let's breathe that in for a minute. Like just be a better version of yourself and stop comparing. Like, okay. Like, I don't even have a question to follow up with that
Oh
because
yeah, no,
that's
I
so
because
powerful.
I yes, because I've done that. I mean, I don't always follow my own advice sometimes because I'm working on releasing my ego, but I keep reminding myself, especially when we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and all these other accounts, we look at other people and we're like, they've got it so together, they got so many clients, but in all reality, no one really has it all together. We're all equals. And it's just such a powerful realization that I have to remind myself sometimes too, because I'm working on releasing my ego. And that's the point of, spirituality, is to really let go of our ego and let our hearts speak.
Ooh. I'm like, so powerful, so powerful. So I know that a little bit ago in our conversation, you mentioned sound healing. How did you get into sound healing? Because I've discovered it 2 years ago, and I was like blown away by the power of sound. How did you get into that?
Well, I had a mentor. I had this friend in Connecticut, and he had a very powerful story, and he also shares his story about healing. He gave me one of my first sound bowls. His name was Calvin Young. He had a great story about his life and his struggles and how he overcame, being incarcerated and all this stuff. And he had a very powerful story. But I always kind of felt intuitive by it. Like in my one-on-one sessions, when I first started doing my sessions, I took a little sound bowl and just rang it a couple times. And I always like kind of resonated with it, but I didn't really do much with it until he started giving me my first bowl. And then one time, my guy that I'm with, we do sound healings together. And one day during COVID, we decided, I have a root chakra bowl, which is this big bowl. It's a crystal bowl, and he has a steel tongue drum, and which is a type of drum. It sounds kind of tropical, kind of instrument. And we started playing together, and we just started harmonizing together. And I thought that was really special, that we have this special connection, that whereas my past relationship would never be so vulnerable to do something like this. We both realized we're both magical, and we shared this space of feeling in love with each other, and we just really enjoy sound healing. So we decided to start doing some sound healings together, and we took a class together. And it's really about our love, that we've done our sound healing stuff together. But I also now love sound healing so much, I incorporate it into my one-on-one sessions. So I'll put the bowls near the person, like near their head, near their heart, because I feel awkward right now still putting like a big bowl on someone's heart, because I don't want it to feel too heavy. But I do put it on one of my bowls on their solar plexus, and I go over it and move the energy. When I do sound healing with Reiki, it definitely helps move the energy at a quicker pace. So I do that. But how I really, really got into it is, spending that time with my guy and doing it, and having a great mentor and friend, kind of navigating me towards that direction as well.
I absolutely love that. So if people are interested in connecting with you, where can they find you?
They can find me in a couple ways. So I have my Facebook business page, at Enchanted Flower Healing 2586. But most of where I post a lot of my stuff, or I get a lot of engagement, and I spend a lot of my time, is my regular Facebook page, Daria Ann. I have a picture of me and my guy with his handpan, or steel tongue drum up there, and I put a lot of stuff on there. I also have a website, enchantedflowerhealing.com, and I'm also now partners with one of my good friends, Stephanie Labonte, and we do the Breath of Heaven studio, and where I do sound healing meditations there. And I also do this amazing meditation called the Holy Breath meditation, which is channeling in ascended masters, all different kinds. I'm a healer that loves all faith and belief, and incorporate it all. And I teach alternate breathing to balance both hemispheres of the brain, to calm the brain down. It's really the first step in meditation, because it allows our brains to calm at a more frequent rate. And I also play my sound healing in there too. So you can check breathofheavenstudio.com as well. And I also do virtual sessions there. And if you're interested in an in-person session, which probably probably a lot of people are not from this area, so virtual will be your best bet. You can book on there, but my virtual sessions you can book, not virtual, my in-person sessions you can book on Enchanted Flower Healing, and Breath of Heaven is more of my virtual stuff.
That's amazing. And I'll make sure to get all your information in the show notes, because I think what you're doing and what you're bringing forward and your overall like end goal of what you want to create with and change in the planet is absolutely just, it lights my heart up. So I want to end with my favorite question. If somebody only walked away with just one little like mic drop golden nugget, what would you want them to walk away with this interview with?
You are worthy of your own love. To always make that investment into loving yourself first. And no, for me, no material possession matters. It only matters how you feel about yourself. And I just would love people to walk away with a more deeper connection to their heart and to just love themselves unconditionally.